And sometimes, I would say, even as a lawyer, that a barrier to communication and transparency in the life of a lawyer is our insurmountable knowledge. The knowledge that we carry, and sometimes it is difficult to communicate freely, clearly, and lucidly, to the extent that even our clients get confused as to what we are trying to communicate. So therefore, we'd like to bang upon the aspect of communication and transparency as two important pillars of any organization. And I would say that even in 2023, if I'm talking about the law firm perspective, I think we have to jettison out the concept of law firms just being as a firm or an organization that is catering to client woes, but rather law firms need to be approachable. They should be able to communicate freely with the client, and they should establish a procedure of communication right from the beginning and be transparent with the client, be it, even if it is, fees, talking about fees, or even case statuses, and so on. What do you say?
Hi everyone, I'm Joyce Johnson. I am not an attorney, but I use quite a bit of attorneys. My background is in mergers and acquisitions, and my specialty background is focused on distressed transactions, which have a huge legal component. I'd like to say two very, very important matters is the whole legal operating model is in my mind changing from a communication standpoint, from a documentation standpoint, and the whole client interaction is changing. Why would I say that? Well, it used to be, not being a lawyer, but pretending to be one, that we needed to understand the four walls of a contract or a document. And I assume everyone here that's a lawyer, all the lawyers raise your hands. So you remember the four walls of a contract, right? Yes. Mira, you just mentioned earlier in the comments, those four walls are changing. So how do I, as a client, need to have that communicated to you? You also mentioned the fact that there's 5 years behind the law for some of the more technological transformation. Well, that's a little scary for me as a client if the law or regulation is 5 years behind, or 4 years, or 3 years, when technology is communicating and moving so much more quickly. So what do I want to see communicated to me as a client? I want my law firm to go out and potentially hire half the panel of the previous panel for IP law, and have them at the forefront, or hire the junior person who maybe isn't even an attorney, but brings that technological expertise to the firm, so that maybe that 5-year gap that you mentioned starts to shrink. So I really think that, what does that mean? That means three things for me as a client, even though I'm in distress and I'm much more well-versed in IP after that last panel than I think I'll ever be, so thank you very much, is proactive. Proactive means, in my opinion, as being an attorney, that I expect you to know the law, but I expect you to proactively understand my business transaction. So most of what I do is transactional, M&A, some litigation. That means instead of just telling me what my contract should look like, is, are you really analyzing my business risk from a legal standpoint? Part one. Part two is, I really want evidence-based discussions. Now I'm going to pick on the attorneys for a minute, so forgive me. No. Is oftentimes we're told as a team, we'll get back to you. We're going to do some research and get back to you. Everybody's nodding that are attorneys, so I can see there's some truth to that comment. Well, that's fine, because we expect you to have proper research and evidence-based facts. But if I just saw that you closed a similar transaction to the one I'm working on, then I should not expect to have 90 hours of work done on something that I just saw you close the deal in the exact same industry. More importantly, with the use of technology, I expect to learn on a confidential basis whatever you learned from the previous transaction to help mitigate risk. And the last issue, I think, is strategic. Law firms are supposed to be protectors of the law and protectors of our investments or risk. But being strategic means you're really being a business partner to me. This is going to sound a bit scary, but we know that profit per partner last year was flat to down worldwide. while expenses were up 6 or 7%. And I've been told by pretty much every law firm that I work with that my rates are going up 7-8%. Well, that math doesn't work, except for one thing. We're willing to pay more for our legal counsel if you're strategic with me. Meaning, I'll let my favorite lawyer, I won't mention his name, who I've worked with for 27 years, I actually